right, you know what day it is and you do know what time it is. This is Mission Possible TV and we are here with the Alternative Pain Management Club.
What we're trying to do is get the over 5,000 medical marijuanists on the Big Island access safely to marijuana, because you got people like me who have too much marijuana and are trying to give it to people that don't have any at all. And what we want to know is just give us some kind of guideline how we can do that without anybody going to jail.
Okay, of concern to us is that Mitch says that if we open up a dispensary, then we're subject to 712, 1247, and 1248, which is promoting a detrimental drug in the first degree and the second degree. But our argument is that 329.125 affords us protections from prosecution as long as we're medical marijuana patients, and we are card-carrying medical marijuana patients. Any controlled substance-bearing plant that is cultivated or any substance from such plant that is produced, manufactured, or processed by the registrant shall be disposed of in accordance with 23-200-20, which reads, any registrant desiring to dispose of controlled substances may do so by transferring any unopened containers to another registrant who is authorized to possess those controlled substances. Well, I have a blue card, and that means that I'm an authorized user of medical marijuana. And I have according to this, I have the ability to hand my medical marijuana, provided that it's a concealed container, to somebody else who is also a card-carrying medical marijuana user.
We get our 15.
So that's our argument in a nutshell.
This is Mike Rose.
I'm straight.
This is Mike Rose. Hey, you know, Sativa.
Hey, our Facebook
I'm this club, Brad Snow. Nice to meet you, Mitch Roth. Brittany. Nice to meet you.
I'm Brittany Neal.
Nice to meet you.
I was hoping that we were going to be able to sit down in the conference room. This is going to happen out here.
Let me see.
I mean, it's okay if you want it to happen.
8?
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
All right.
Where do you usually sit?
Where do you want me to sit?
I want you to sit someplace where, I'll tell you, why don't you sit with
I gotta tell you, I feel a little bit ambushed, but
No, you should. Where's your
We're
ego?
friends.
No,
We're friends.
you should not feel ambushed.
No, we're not trying to make you feel that way.
No.
Hundreds of people wanted to come. RJ said don't do it because she thought you might feel ambushed. And
Yeah.
we definitely didn't want to do that. And I want to say this on camera in front of everybody. Even though we're on polar sides, we're actually on the same side. What we're wanting is, there's over 5,000 medical cannabis users on the Big Island. And we're a club dedicated to getting them safe access to cannabis and safe cannabis. Because currently what's going on is you got people using poisons, pesticides, you got people having to buy, you got terminal patients having to buy weed off of Mamo Street. Law enforcement has stood silent on this issue for 13 years. So there must be something that they're afraid of.
and I said during the campaign, someone has a legitimate ailment and a doctor legitimately prescribes marijuana. I'm not a doctor. I don't have a medical degree, and so, as far as where we're at with marijuana, and you know this because you actually were in a lawsuit, and I was actually, I don't know why I got brought into this lawsuit, but you sued me and you guys lost, and the ruling basically was that the state and federal laws actually trumped the county ordinance. That being said, as far as the enforcement of marijuana, it really has been pretty much the lowest law enforcement priority. In the last year, promotion of detrimental drugs in the third degree. Those are marijuana cases that are the small amount ones that a lot of people bring issues with. I think in the state, standalone cases, when I say standalone, I'm talking about cases that don't deal with methamphetamine, because just about every single methamphetamine case we have has marijuana. One takes you up, one takes you down. Okay? So standalone marijuana cases in the state is about 500, and we're one island out of 4, and probably the majority of those come from Honolulu, because Honolulu has a lot more people. So that being said, there hasn't been a lot of time spent I'm just focusing on small marijuana cases.
How do our new patients acquire? And how do people like me who have too much?
I think what I'd like to have happen here is I'd like to see the case presented. I'd like to see Mike speak to Mitch about what he has, and then Brittany, and then we can get to a kind of a place where we're at, because there's some other things here other than, please, there's some facts that need to be presented to you. Okay.
State law is silent on how a patient obtains medical marijuana. When we communicated with you via email and we proposed the idea of opening up a dispensary, you said that if we did that, we would be subject to 712,
Correct.
first and the second degree.
But, and let me just kind of answer that, because we had this conversation as well. One thing, you're looking at disposing of marijuana. The other side of that, you're looking at distributing marijuana.
Right.
And, the way I understand this to work is it's more a distribution scheme than a disposition scheme. You're not like, oh, I'm not going to use this marijuana. Here you go, Mike.
Okay, then please, I don't want to be rude to you,
Uh-huh.
but I would like to take it to the next level by allowing him to present the case and hear the
Okay.
whole thing in
All right.
entirety.
The question is marijuana a controlled substance bearing plant? And if it is, it sounds like it should be, then it should be covered under Hawaii Administrative Rules 23-200-20, which reads, for the procedures for disposal of controlled substances reads, any registrant desiring to dispose of controlled substances may do so by transferring unopened containers to another registrant who is authorized to possess those controlled substances. Okay, I have a blue card, I have a sealed container of medical marijuana, I hand it to somebody else who has a blue card. And that should be okay based upon Hawaii Administrative Rules 23-200-20. Now, 23-200-21 is the production of controlled substance-bearing plants. And it says, any controlled substance-bearing plant that is cultivated or any substance from such plant that is produced, manufactured, or processed by the registrant, the blue card holder, shall be disposed of in accordance with 23-200-20, which I just read. So it seems to me that if medical marijuana is a controlled substance-bearing plant, then it must be covered under these Hawaii Administrative Rules. And based upon 329-125, which provides an affirmative defense to any prosecution involving marijuana, if you are a registered card holder, then I don't see how 712 could possibly apply to us.
Because you're talking about a distribution scheme.
We like transfer.
Or transfer.
I realize
Can you
that's-
wrap your mind around that
It
for a
says
moment?
transfer, right in
Transfer?
23-200-20. Transferring any unopened containers to another registrant who is authorized to possess those controlled
So in other
substances.
words, you could trade OxyContin or morphine between
Procedures for of disposal of control, any registrant desiring to dispose may do so by transferring any unopened containers to another registrant who is authorized to possess those controlled substances.
Are you familiar with that law, Mitch?
I have seen that law. And we may be talking in things, but legal semantics, you're talking about disposing, but what you really want to do is dispense or distribute. Distribution.
Transfer.
True.
Transfer.
We're not disputing that.
But what's going on is we're trying to give you a guideline or something you can use to tell us, because this actually came out of the Controlled Substance Act. This is word for word out of the CSA.
And you yourself said that it's.
And our point is this, is that they've stood silent for 13 years. And on the Big Island, there's 5,000 people under prosecutorial discretion now. And so, you don't have to tell us this, but what we want is for you to give us, the 5,000 people on the Big Island, some kind of guideline. And if you can't give us a guideline, can you at least give the police a guideline and then tell us what it is? Because with no guidelines at all,
We're back to state law is
See
silent
what
on
I'm
how
saying?
patients
With-
obtain his or her marijuana.
right, with no guidelines, everybody is criminal, right? Or do you deny that? All 5,000
So-
medical marijuanas are criminals right now on the Big Island, until you speak up.
Legitimate. I don't know what that means
No,
either.
see, you're asking me to actually make law. The law is made by the legislature. We interpret, and our interpretation,
That's
and-
what's dangerous.
Right, we're just
isn't it?
asking for your
the
interpretation. How do
interpretation
we do
is,
it?
the interpretation is, what you're asking is not a disposing of, but it's a distribution of. And unfortunately,
What is your interpretation of this law? I'm sorry to interrupt, but what he cited about the
If you want to
transfer?
dispose of, it's,
Throw it away? Does it just dispose of
but it
means
says
throw
transfer.
away, destroy?
What does it say in the
What's-
law? Hold on, what does it say again?
what's the law, what's the title?
Show
of
it
the
to
law?
Mitch.
This is called Procedures for Disposal of Controlled Substances. And this is
Okay,
just,
so let me stop right there.
Okay.
Procedures for disposal.
right. So think of it in terms of, I want to dispose, I'm going to dispose of it, but the person who I'm transferring it to is going to use it, because they don't need to dispose it.
So, I understand what you're asking. You're asking the wrong person to make the law. And the problem is, the legislature, when they made the law, they did not give it would be, for your argument, it would be a lot better if they were clear about what they were talking about. But no, they were not clear. They put, it's disposal of marijuana. So, sorry, but, we're gonna have a disagreement on this. I can't.
But we're not asking you to
But
write
I
law.
really need for Brittany now to, because what we're not asking you to write legislation,
We just
what we're
want your
asking your
interpretation.
interpretation as it stands today, because we're gonna do the work to get you the kind of laws that we can live
Okay,
with,
so,
okay?
but
Brittany,
basically, you're asking is for me to change my interpretation.
I don't want you to do anything except listen to
Okay.
Brittany right now.
Maybe you should see this.
Based on my understanding of the medical marijuana law, acquisition and disposal are actually two sides of the same coin. Because if 329 Part 9, which actually defines the adequate supply and puts limits on the amount of medical cannabis a patient can possess legally at any given time, in order to stay within that constraint, one needs to be able to have access to a disposal. Otherwise, they are going to be subject to the provisions of HRS 712, and that becomes problematic. Because the only defense that a medical cannabis patient has is an affirmative defense, which means you comply with the law, and you won't find yourself in trouble and being prosecuted under HRS 712. However, with the way things are currently, there are so many gray areas. We don't know how to abide by the law, but I guarantee you, we are absolutely law-abiding citizens. We are doing our best to navigate this very complicated arena. We are merely lay people, and we just need some guidance from you, Mitch, and I plead that you will help us, because there are disabled folks in our community that are, quite frankly, in an emergency situation. We have now contacted the DEA, Hazmat, the Department of Environmental Management, Enviro Services, the Scale House, the Hawaii Police Department Chief. We've spoken with the head of Vice and even the Narcotics Enforcement Division, trying to inquire as to how do we dispose of medical cannabis if we find ourselves with too much. No one has been able to answer this question for us. And so I'm nervous, Mitch, until this question can be answered. How do I comply with the law? Because disposal is the same coin as acquiring. It's just the flip side of it.
Basically, what you're asking me to do is act as your attorney. I cannot act as your attorney and take you through this and say, this is how you do it, and this is, my interpretation of this right now is, for disposal, you have this law. However, what you're asking to do is basically set up a dispensary.
Exactly. And
And that
I
goes to
knew you were
distribution.
gonna take this tack. And I wanna let you know, the reason we're doing this and filming this is because we're going to set up this dispensary. This will go to court. And we're doing this so that later maybe we can get an injunction. See what I'm saying? Because what we're showing is there's no way to do this. The state told us we could do it, and from my research, the legislators didn't do anything wrong. They legislated medical marijuana. The reason they didn't make any rules is that was public safety's kuleana, their responsibility to speak up. It's been 13 years. Now, you yourself said that you believe that the feds will legalize marijuana within the next 10 years. And I
That'll
can-
probably happen.
And I can tell you this,
Whether it's
since,
right or wrong.
whether right or wrong, you believe that'll happen. And I can tell you since Hawaii did it in 2000, 18 states have joined and 2 have legalized it. And so all we're asking is, you got Washington DC has dispensaries. They did it last year. We've been waiting 13 years, going on 14 years. And so what we're saying is that there's thousands of people out there that are scared. They don't know what to do. Every time they harvest a plant, they gotta get a new one. They're breaking the law. All 5,000 people. And we're asking you, we're not asking you to write law, change law, or anything. We're asking you what your discretionary powers, where will you let people slide? If
Okay.
Mike is a terminal cancer patient, can I give him marijuana without going to prison?
By
Let
getting-
me just bring some things that probably need to be looked at,
Okay.
okay?
Solutions, that's what I'm hoping you get.
One of the big problems that you have right now is if I go to a drugstore and I get a prescription, we're not getting prescriptions of marijuana, but the doctor will put a couple things, a type of medicine. It doesn't just say go get a pain medicine and I can get Vicodin or Ambien or whatever the different things is. You know, with the marijuana that we have, the THC, you guys are doing a great job. You've gone from like a 2% to about a 26% in THC. So there's a type potency issue
Exactly.
that needs to be, and
That's
there's
why
a
you need
frequency.
us. You need us to
frequency.
define this.
Well, I think that there, and that's a big part of the problem is it needs to be defined. I don't know if it needs to be defined by you or the medical community,
Somebody.
but there's issues that still are on the table. The legislature, they were not clear on how it can be done. And you have laws, you have 712 distribution laws that say you're not supposed to distribute marijuana.
True, 329 though is supposed to supersede that, and it has rules on how medical marijuana's, that's the latest, is 329 because it includes medical marijuana.
Well, actually, 329 and 712 are both in the HRS. These are
Correct.
administrative rules which actually are lower than the HRS. So, I understand your predicament. And, the easy thing for me to do would have been to say, I'm not going to meet with you guys and forget you. I don't have the answer for you. But I think there's questions that you need to ask, and probably you need to go back to the legislature and say, these are the issues.
So it's like, if I were to take this to court without opening up and getting arrested, I would have to show that I have the right to do this. And although they said back in 2000 we do have the right, they stood silent on how, and I can't prove that I have a right to do anything. But if I get arrested, now you have to prove I don't have the right to do it.
Our burden is to prove a distribution scheme.
Okay, well, if I were to
And
open,
that's kind of, I understand what you're saying, but everything else is saying, basically, you're looking to dispense, and you're agreeing with me that.
I agree, yes, we are.
Because I go back to Brownie Mary
Which
in San
means
Francisco and
distribution.
Dennis Peron, so we had to start there 20 some odd years ago. And San Francisco said the same thing you do. But today they have legal dispensaries.
Because
and
somebody
everybody-
opened
because
up and
somebody
got
like us
busted
came
and got an
said,
injunction.
Then do something for us. This is cancer patients.
Because it's hard to grow marijuana,
It's hard
and there's
to
a lot
grow
of
it.
sick
Not
people
everybody
that
can
can't
grow
grow it. You gotta be strong to
Some
grow
is
it.
asleep,
It's not easy to
some
grow.
is for
It's not.
It's not an easy, it's a
Not
farming
easy
thing and you
to
don't always come out.
Not to do medical
So you force
marijuana.
people to buy, and that's a
Not
whole,
medical marijuana, Mitch. Bring respect to the idea that this is medical marijuana. And if you really look at it, every one of those plants has a different function. And not everybody's taking it for the high. There's some THC that there's some plants that don't even have any THC. It has something else that they need for the cancer. I'm working with liver patients. I'm working with people with cancer who are having results, and their doctors are going, well, I don't know what you're doing, but it's working, so keep on going, your count is good. So what I'm looking to you is, I know you're not looking for us, but we're telling you this is the shot fired over your head saying we're coming because it needs to happen, and you're right, we need to go to the legislature. But before we did, we wanted to know what the temperament of the Office of Prosecution is and where you stand on this, because I'm hoping that in the back of your heart and your mind, there's a victory for all of us. For you, for these people, for me, and for everybody else in the world. Because we in Hawaii, we're compassionate about this subject. And that's why you gave us this meeting today, because you're full of compassion too. Thank you.
I'm not sure how you feel about this, but it appears to me that currently we are actually in an emergency situation with disabled people's health and safety being threatened, currently and imminently, such that I was wondering if, given that you ran on the platform of health and safety, if you would be willing to at least put forth an effort to try to have the Department of Public Safety speak up. Because if this is their area and they have chosen to stand silent for 13 years, perhaps you could petition the administrator of the NED, of the Department of Public Safety, to make an emergency revision and reschedule medical marijuana to a Schedule 2. Because this is the only way to actually acknowledge the medicinal value and address HRS 329 Part 9. And I feel that this could actually create a solution, and then perhaps when we call up hazards, they would know how to dispose of this controlled substance, and it might at least open the door. I'm not sure how you feel about this.
You know, I know that Keith Kamita has been very vocal on this subject. And, you know, you're probably better talking to him for, you know, and he talks to people. So, I don't know if you guys have tried to talk
Maybe
to
we
Keith.
should try him too then, maybe.
Oh, we'll try everybody. We're gonna knock on every door
Yeah,
until
it's-
the discussion comes on the table. So thank you, Mitch.
All right.
This was a wonderful meeting, and we're out of here. I gotta go into the sugarcane field.
Okay.
Okay.
I don't know if that was what you wanted, but
You
You know, I
did
gotta
what
be
you-
honest.
yeah, here. I hope you'll continue to be honest.
Yeah,
We're just trying to
move
prove,
forward.
we're not the bad guy out here.
Yeah,
We're really not. We're
You're
actually
gonna
trying to help
change your
you
mind,
in
that's
our
all.
way.
no,
I know I'm programmed.
many of you guys.
Appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
Mr. Roth.
I'll see you, man. Good to see you.
Good to see you, brother.
Aloha. Thank you. Take care. Okay, Stephen.
So what you're saying is that law we read you is superseded by other laws? Is that what you were saying?
No, you're looking at distribution versus disposing. It's a different, there's two different things in my mind.
What
one
does
law's-
disposing mean then?
Dispose means to get rid of. Distribute means you're basically passing it out.
The law has no way for us to acquire. So there has to be some kind of distribution, one way or another. There's a distribution happening with people who acquire marijuana in the first place. So it has to happen.
It's only legal to get the card, it's not legal to get the plant?
I didn't make the law.
I can tell you this, I can't just throw marijuana garbage as a class 1 drug. It says you can only dispose of it according to 23-200-20. If you just throw it in the garbage, or if you just take it somewhere, that's illegal. And so I've called all those people that she talked to, and I told them, hey, I got a trash can of marijuana here, what do I do with it? Nobody told me what to do with it. So, and the Scale House guy said, hey, I can tell you this, Green Harvest brings their marijuana down here, but I can't give you permission to transport it. You see what I'm saying? And so it's like, how do you even
It's a
dispose
nice
of it?
little Rubik's Cube.
Thank you, guys.
Have a good day.
Take care.
I want everybody's take on this meeting. 1, 2, 3, down the line.
The prosecutor is not going to stick his neck out. That's what we learned today. He referred us to Keith Kamita, which we're going to get a lot of traction out of Keith Kamita. The answer is he's basically put up a brick wall for us. There's no legal, before today there was no legal way to acquire medical marijuana, and after this meeting it's exactly the same thing. There is no way legally to acquire medical marijuana, not even by disposing of it. I want to dispose, you want to acquire. It seems like it's a match made in heaven, but apparently not to the prosecutor.
Well, man, I want to thank everybody, especially our James Sativa, for today's meeting with Mitch Roth, the prosecutor. And I think it went extremely well because he stonewalled us and wouldn't give us, we pleaded with him. We said, please just give us some kind of guidelines on how the 5,000 medical marijuanists on the Big Island can acquire, transfer, and dispose. Naturally, he stonewalled us. He didn't say nothing, which is perfect because this case will eventually end up in court, and what we're trying to do is show the judge, even though the state said we could do this and over 5,000 people on the Big Island are doing it, every one of them are in peril, every one of them are probably going to end up in jail or somewhere along that line unless we get this fixed. So I know in California this is how they started. This is a dispensary opened in California similar to this. I seen it on a TV show at the college. And then they went and opened up, got arrested, got an injunction, and they were the first legal dispensary in California. So we're going to try to mimic that, and that's the next step. But we've already talked to the prosecutor, the chief, county council, DEA, NED, Vice, you name it. We've talked to everybody in the county. This is something that they told us we could do. There's over 5,000 people doing it. Now they need to speak up and tell us how we do it without going to jail.
Well, I think that our meeting with Mitch Roth went very well. I appreciate him taking the time to meet with us and to have the courtesy to dance around some of our questions. I think that it was educational for all of us, and I was not really surprised that he didn't want to petition the administrator of the Department of Public Safety to actually reschedule medical cannabis. However, I thought it was worth a try. And, I hope that in the future, perhaps maybe after sleeping on this, Mitch can offer up some suggestions on a disposal scheme. He kept referring to a dispensing scheme whenever we spoke of laws related to the disposal of a controlled substance. And since law really comes down to, at least in my lay understanding, the words that are used and the intent with which you act, I'm wondering how, when one intends to dispose of their medicine, how that could be construed as a dispensing scheme. So perhaps Mitch will feel comfortable in the future offering some more information on the subject, as I feel it would be very helpful. But overall, I feel very good about the meeting and the way it went, and I am glad to have been a part of it. So thank you, Mitch.
Said it wasn't that long ago when all you thought about was drinking, thinking about the weekend when you really didn't want to go, till you knew that there was someone waiting ready to roll. But if you feel like making war, then you better talk about it before you get it started. If you feel like making war, then you better realize what you're fighting for. So while you're waiting, hoping every little thing's gonna be alright, you gotta know when you'll be looking for the ones that are ready to fight. So if you feel like making war, then you better talk about it before you get it started. If you feel like making war, then you better realize what you're fighting for. Say, though you've been searching for the answer, to all the questions that I know, I really don't think you'll ever find a reason for the one thing that will keep me moving while I'm losing my mind. Said if you feel like making war, or feel like giving up, you gotta see that no one else can save you from yourself.